Good morning. Today is Thursday, the 21st. We're getting close to this holiday season of Thanksgiving, and even though every year it seems like the holidays creep up upon us sooner and sooner, we have this anticipation that starts coming. And I used to have a lot of different thoughts about that in terms of wanting to wait till after Thanksgiving to get the whole celebration going and prepare. And used to think a lot about the commercialism and how it's what I thought was exploited sooner. But more recently, I started thinking about the positive aspects of how anybody interprets celebration. And it's no different than how we celebrate life. And if that's something that's joyful for individuals to do because it helps them to get into the spirit, or it resonates with them or brings them closer to that feeling, then I say more power to it, whatever that is in life. Because there's just so many different things that we're working with on a daily basis, and a lot of it is in our mind, of course. So today I really wanted to talk about what I perceive as this season where we talk about being thankful, and I also see it as another type of season where we really experience the movement within us that brings us more inward into a deeper dream time state, and this leads us into the winter season. And I think of that as seeds that are dormant. We place them and we cover them up. They get covered up by the snow, and then in spring we see them flourishing. But I feel like all the energy of what's being created over these months that are winter, and we draw inward, especially if we're in the northern hemisphere and we experience winter and this sense of drawing into our home because the weather becomes frigid outside or our times are more limited outdoors. There are many things that we do to receive the gifts of this season, to prepare our seeds and the dream time that allows us to expand out into new ideas and new creation, new things that we're wanting to create from our heart. So I wanted to share with you this idea first, a quote from St. Francis of Assisi in the Lord's Prayer, or not the Lord's Prayer, I'm sorry, it's the Peace Prayer. And in it, he has a line that says, it's in the giving that we receive, and that's true. And secondly, this season obviously talks a lot about giving. We're out there giving gifts and thinking about our loved ones and celebrating in that way. And for all of us that are nonprofits, we're out there putting out what our work is and what we do out in the world, and people give in this way back into the contribution of it all and creating that for a cause and something that's for all. We think about it in many ways, and we aren't often thinking about giving to ourselves. So the second line that I would add to St. Francis's quote is that it's in the receiving that we are able to give. And oftentimes at this time of the year, especially in modern day times, it's become more the custom of giving, not really being able to receive, and a lot of the depletion of the energy that goes into this time because we're so busy and we're creating lots of different activities and attending lots of different events, and a lot that's going out, but not a lot that's coming in. And I, like everything, I believe that it's a matter of balance. So as we draw inward at this time, we can utilize some very strong and potent remedies for ourselves. and that would be working with life force energy itself. And these would be some of those seeds that we're receiving and that we're planting and taking really good care of, nurturing them. Remember, little seedlings, what all we would do in their very delicacy to nurture them and allow them to grow strong and take root. So in my hands today, I have 2 stones. One that came from a trip this summer to Devil's Lake in Wisconsin, and another one that came from the shores of Lake Michigan, way up north in the Upper Peninsula when we visited Mackinac Island. Both of these stones, upon walking, hiking, when I came upon them, they sort of jumped right out at me. And I picked them up, and they were very unique. I loved the contour of these stones and the way they felt in my fingers, in my hands. And I sat with them very still and perceived the energy of the land that I was standing upon. And it was as if though they were old friends. Now, that experience came to me in that moment, but it was very significant in that moment because it held a lot of power. And all of us have different types of experiences that have a lot of power and meaning to us. And whatever they are, I would encourage you to take those as your gifts, receive them and hold them, plant the seeds that are those gifts deeply within yourself and allow them to take root. That lays the very foundation that when you encounter other types of conditions and circumstances in your life that might be challenging or that you perceive as difficult, that you can draw inward into the strength of those very gifts, those experiences that now are integrating more in your body. You can perceive into that moment, into the way you experienced them through your senses. Perhaps it was your touch, or it was the sounds, what you heard at that moment, or what you smelled in that moment. The feelings that it elicited from you that were feelings of goodness, warmth, love, all those types of feelings that gave you that moment of excitement or joy, hold them. All of those are the seeds that were planted, and all of them are taking root in through you. Imagine it as it spreads out and fills through your body. These are ways that we build our inner force within the soul, and that we can then meet and greet those challenges that are ahead. And we can actually rest upon them when we feel challenged by our different thoughts that might include at times being charged negatively with a doubt or fear or frustration, and none of those are bad. They're signaling us. And I've even come to think that perhaps in that signal we are then turned towards an awareness that we can go within and tap into these parts of us, these seeds that we're nurturing and allowing to grow. And every time we tap into them, that seed, that seedling perhaps breaks through and actually blossoms, and that grows greater in its force and its capacity. And we could even connotate that to the very equivalent of love expansion within us for ourselves, definitely enabling us to love more out into the world. We could also experience that as consciousness expanding in us as we become more aware. And that going out into the world too. So these are very subtle and practical ways that we can tap into this life force energy. Yesterday, I had the opportunity and blessing of sharing a short story with a group that I work with, and it was a beautiful moment where the story, which was A Christmas Memory by Truman Capote, describes a lot of different events in a moment in his life when he was 7 and had a friendship with a much elderly woman that was almost like a grandmother figure to him. The experiences were so vivid, and the craft within the writing was so profound and beautiful that it moved us all visibly in the room. But what moved us was the feeling that he was describing, which were those moments in that friendship in his life experience. Those moments that seemed so insignificant, but were very powerful. They were so potent that it allowed him to perceive things that were deep within his soul, that made him wonder. Had wonder about life and living, and perhaps what it was really all about. It allowed him to form the kinds of roots within himself that allowed him to see contrasts in the experience of living between what seemed more crude and rough and what seemed smooth and light, what seemed perhaps at times ugly or beautiful, and the relationship of one's perception. And in reading that story, we had seeds that were given to us, that were planted. And we had the extra beautiful experience of being able to be together in that moment. And in that moment, we all shared that. And these kinds of moments, we get all the time. It's a matter of allowing us to be open enough to perceive in this way, wherever we are, whatever we're out to do and go about in the day, on the train, in the car, walking down the street, hiking through the woods, playing with your children, cooking, scrubbing your toilet. It's just these moments that we're given. And I would say to you, take those moments where it feels like a little spark goes into your mind and you have a moment where you have a feeling that's very special to you. Honor it. Hold it. Take it deeply in as the seeds, the gifts that you are receiving, and allow them to be nurtured by revisiting them. How special and profound they were, how they are significant in your experience. You know, many of us can hear myself, all kinds of people talking, and we, imagine things outside of ourselves, that there's wisdom coming from someone else, or that's just because the way they see it, or whatever the thoughts are, that they just come out from the outside perception. But the reality is that when we take these types of seeds and we receive them and we spend time with them and we allow ourselves to form our very own selves with them, that we then create a vortex around us and empower ourselves. And the whole point of consciousness expanding as we empower ourselves is to allow that to move through us in this beautiful creation that is individual and collective at this very moment. And by doing this nurturing, we allow ourselves to be able to give in a much greater way. And to hold this thought that the giving that you do on a daily basis is more about your presence. So all those seeds that you've taken in, all that allowing the nurturing to happen with you, all those roots that have been formed, all that foundation that has been laid, every time you revisit it, it goes throughout your whole being and presence. Now you step out into the world, and all this is going out. It must work that way because we gain in this love and this consciousness, and then it just permeates everything. Ourselves, our homes, all our loved ones around us, and even greater out into the world. Wherever we go, all our circles. So keep that in mind and allow that to be part of the work that you do, the care that you have for wanting to give. Allow it to be received and then give that out freely. That is such a blessing that you give to yourself, to your journey in life, to your loved ones. And think about that for just a moment. All your loved ones receiving all those gifts transmitted through you. And know that you are more powerful than you currently perceive in this moment. And I would say that's true for all of us because it is so infinitive. And we go about this life journey gathering little glimpses more and more and more, building a momentum, building that vortex around us. And so as we expand, each and every one of us today, blessings on all your gifts, on all that you're receiving today, and on all the ways that it will be gifted outward as well. As within, so without. Blessings upon your day.